It's showtime.
Down to business. I got my wild cherry Diet Pepsi, and I got my blackjack gum here, and I got that feeling. Yeah, that familiar feeling that something rank is going down out there.
The gutter.
It's a nice spot.
The gutter.
I like the relationships. I mean, each character has his own story. I mean, puppy is a bit too much, but you have to overlook things like that in these kind of paintings. But the way he's holding her, it's almost filthy. I mean, he's about to kiss her, and she's pulling away. The way the leg is sort of smashed up against her. Look how he's painted the blouse, sort of translucent. You can just make out her breast underneath, and it's, sort of touching him about here. It's really pretty torrid, don't you think? Then, of course, you have the onlookers peeking at them from behind the doorway like they're all shocked. They wish. Yeah, I must admit, when I see a painting like this, I get emotionally erect.
Emotionally erect. Greetings. Welcome to the gutter. Everyone ends up here eventually. It is only a matter of time. Tonight, in the spirit of Monty Python, and now for something completely different. Normally, each episode of the gutter is a topic I'm fairly familiar with and want to share with you due to one reason or another. Tonight, however, we have accepted a recommendation of sorts. So I guess get your popcorn ready to enter a world where social power dynamics are just about as twisted as our own, but with a hell of a lot more flair for the dramatic, and where, without warning, an avatar of destruction can emerge to extract vengeance without any heed or call, or without any reason or rhyme. Anyone married or in a long-term relationship can relate to this. It is a land where matriarchs play a game of politics with the same ruthless cunning as any man ever could or did, and in many ways, with a more bloodlusting edge. For here, in this world, betrayal is a currency that is broken down into the change that's measured in trauma. And I assure you, both is just another tool in an arsenal that knows no limit. It has no limit in this world. It is a world of exploitation where witches who rule through a combination of fear and terror think nothing of draining the life of others to fuel their own dark desires, with a more vindictive venality than even an ex-wife could desire. In this realm, beauty masks the horror, the same way each of us wears a mask to hide our own ugly truths and petty lies from the world of beneath polished veneers. Behind the false smile painted on, behind the allure of the layers of makeup, there's a game that's being played. Every move a negotiation, every alliance a trap. At the center of it all, a fucking kaiju trapped in some kind of a fashion inside a half-breed human monster. I shit you not. This thing is wild. Opening this to a degree, we stand on a precipice of our old polarized abyss, looking through a mirror darkly. It is an inversion of our world on the other side of the reflection, and it isn't what we want to see, but damned if it's not engaging. So, with all of that being said as an intro, submitted for your approval, a tale of power, betrayal, and what happens when you let the monster inside of you out. Tonight on the Gutter, we take a look at the first 6 issues of Monstress. But first, belated introductions. I, of course, remain Aldous, your obsessive nerd yokel host. With me, as almost always, is none other than Raiden, who has been to these states. Raiden, there's a couple of states that have been not visited.
Yeah.
Like a whole subsection of the American Southwest. And I would like to point out my own state, as well as Minnesota, Wisconsin, and South Carolina. So why do you hate those people?
Because I haven't been. How many states have you been to?
46.
Okay. So do you hate the other 4?
Absolutely.
All right.
Rhode Island can burn.
Fair.
They got rid of the whalers, man. They deserve no empathy. They deserve no compassion. You don't get rid of the whale.
So we've hit a new low tonight because you've let me name the episode. Do you want to hear what my backup title was?
I did let you name the episode.
Yeah, so my backup title, if you didn't like Lovecraft and Labias, was Seven to Maternity.
Yes, against my better judgment, I did allow Raiden to. We pulled an audible. It's the first audible in the history of the Gutter. Normally, I come up with a title and we run with it. I came up with a title. Mine originally was Steampunk, Kaiju, and a Side of Fries. And then we pulled the audible, and that's where we got what we've got. So with that being said, let's turn to the chat. Some person joined us sometime earlier. He says, maybe he was dictating. Hey, it didn't start yet. When it does, Bancroft raid. Well, thank you, Mr. Bancroft, for the raid. It's appreciated. Hojo's here. I got to catch the replay. Gonna tune. Oh, he's not here, though. He's here, but he's not here. He's here in spirit. He'll be at a convention tomorrow. I'll be at a small convention. You got to start somewhere. And now, on with the show. Absolutely, man. Best of luck at the show. Snuggy Jr. is here. Great to see Snugs. Dale A. is here. Quiet Red Media is here. Arrogant Ape, our producer, is here. Good luck at your first table, Hojo. Absolutely, man. That first con can be kind of scary, but I'm sure Hojo will do well. Why? Because he's fucking Hojo. Frequency Girl is here. Great to see Frequency Girl in the chat. Give my best to Neff. Got Jason Sandberg in the chat. Scrolling down a little bit. Arrogant Ape says, the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear. The oldest and strongest kind of fear is Europhobia. Thank you for that, Arrogant Ape. Everybody's greeting everybody else. We've got, of course, Henry Bemis. What up, everybody? Great to see you, Henry Bemis. Scrolling down further, looking for anybody else. Lovecraft and Labias is pretty good. Yeah, that's why I agreed with the audible, man. JP came up with a banger. It was good. So it's everybody in the chat. So with that being said, JP, I guess we gotta kind of jump right into this. Is there anything you want to kind of lead into it with?
Pretty cash with the child sacrifice, just as a kind of a warning for anybody, who may have, been to like the Democratic National Convention or a pizza place in Washington, D.C., just a heads up.
Frequency Girl, I will never let facts get in the way of me shitting all over Rhode Island. Just saying. Yeah. But yes, it is. It is very, very heavily a lot of child sacrifice. So yeah, what we will be covering tonight is Monstress. And you can get this. We're just covering the first 6 issues, which are covered in volume 1. It's 192 pages. You can get it on Amazon for $8.
Yeah,
Now,
it's a shame though that list of awards now is almost like a warning sign.
it kind of is. Now, I'm gonna do something I normally don't do. Normally, at the end of the episode is when we talk about recommendations and stuff. I'm gonna preface everything I'm gonna about to say about this book with this: buy it. It's $9 for
Mm.
192 pages. There's
Yeah, I mean
good.
it's worth it just for the art alone.
And that's where I'm headed.
I,
Just
I thought that the Art Deco would grab you.
it did. It did. There's a lot I really loved about this book. This was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to read for the gutter. This was not made for me. This is not a book that I would normally pick up. If this was not recommended or suggested to us, this is not something I would look at. I'd get 3 or 4 pages in and go, nope, not going to do it. But yeah, I grabbed volume 1 for $9, and I'm glad I own it. I will never probably pick this up again and read it, but I will definitely flip through and look at the art. And I'm not that guy. Usually I'm the guy that's like, man, I'm gonna, if I own a book, it's a book that I'm buying for story and art. It's the whole package. This one, I'm glad I own it, but it's not something that I would ever. I don't want to read anymore. It's just not for me. And we'll get into some of the reasons why as we go through this. But I did want to start off with this. So, like I said, we are covering Monstress, issues 1 through 6. It was written by Majorie Liu. It was drawn by Sana. Oh man, I'm gonna butcher this. Sana Takeda. It was lettered by
Is that the villain from the Batman serial?
Ross Wooden. No, this is the villain from the Batman serial.
Oh,
Jennifer M. Smith. She is the buffeter.
wow.
Yeah. Moving past that bad joke quickly. What is Monstress? If I had to sum it up in like a couple sentences, it's a steampunk styled version of 19th century Asia with a layered story with a shit ton of subplots and character arcs. It's got survival, revenge, ancient mysteries all wrapped up inside. I'd argue this world is really fleshed out, almost too much. Um, and the only other thing I'm going to say is what were your thoughts on the setting? Did you think this was an Elseworlds thing, or did you think it was like this is another dimension of our own reality?
Whenever I found myself pondering that question, there would be a slew of F-bombs, and it would kind of drag me back to this
That's
world.
that's kind of what I thought. Like it was the expletives just didn't. We can get into that as we're going through it, but yeah, the pacing on this was really strange, and some of the
Yeah.
dialogue was really.
I thought the world felt lived in and interesting, but like from my very broad take is that the character arcs really let it down.
So Snuggie says, "Buy it. It's $9. It sucks, I bet, but buy it." And then he continues on with, "I don't want to read anymore, but buy it." No, so I'm suggesting this is not for me. And as we go, that doesn't mean it's not for you. It also doesn't mean it's not good. It is
Yeah.
good. It's just not for me. The writing is good. The art is good. The story is good. It's just not for me. This is for a group. If you like Berserk, if you're a huge fan of Irene stuff, my God, there's a lot of stuff in here that reminded me of Fiendish. If you're a huge fan of Irene stuff, pick it up for $9 for 192 pages. You're gonna love it. If you're like me, no, you're gonna just like it for the art, and that's it. It's good. It's just I don't like it. Things can be good, and I don't like them, and there can be things that I like that are not good. You see that a lot on this show, actually. But no, that's my point. Is that everybody's got different tastes, man. I can tell you that this is good. This is a high quality product. It's got a good story. It's got good art, and we're gonna go through that and walk through some of it. It has problems. There's issues. There's going to be issues and everything, but this is well put together. It's just not my bag, man. This is not something I would normally look at. Like I said. By the way, got the Dark Horse Omnibus for Lone Wolf and Cub. Never read it before, so looking forward to it. Thanks for recommending. That's still a killer deal. Those Lone Wolf and Cub omnibuses are up. There's 12 volumes up. Each one's over 700 pages. They're a little bit smaller. They're like digest size, but for less than, I think it's $20 to $22. You can't beat it. Buy one and just check it out. If you don't like it, you got 700 pages of cool art that you can flip and someone else will buy. But for that price, it's a hell of a deal. This first series I picked up from issue 1, says Frequency Girl. As I'm started reading from issue 1, it got going back for it's good. It is good. But 100 pages for $9 and get it in a few days. Why, when you spend 35 for 48 pages and get it in 5? I love how Snugs just stays in the paint. He never leaves. The ball goes to the other end of the court and he waits for it to come back, and then he just stays in the paint and throws elbows. But we've got to get the one I got didn't even break 15. Yeah, no, they're killer deals right now on that Lone Wolf and Cub deal. But to delve right into it, we're going to be covering the first 6 issues. This is issue 1. And if you're looking for the actual floppies, I'm going to advise you against it. The first 6 issues for this are actually collectible for a variety of reasons. One of them is there's no variants, which is weird, right? That there's no variants. There's a second printing and a third printing. So there's actually 3 copies of issue 1. So you can get like a third printing copy, but even a third printing copy is going to run you like $10. Most reader copies in this range are going to be 10 to 50 actually. If you get up into like beyond reader grade, they're going for 100, 200. I mean, if you get them graded, it's even more. People get really weird with this series because there's a lot of fandom, and as we go through it, you're going to start seeing why. Number 1, the front dress of this book deserves comment because it is absolutely gorgeous. It ties into our conversation about Art Deco and Art Nouveau styles from Wednesday on the Witching Hour. JP, do you have any input on just what are your thoughts when you open up a book and you see this?
I mean, from our discussion on Wednesday, I thought it was a really weird coincidence. I wasn't expecting it at all. Did you feel like this art style matched the world?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of thought it was a strange choice. It's visually pleasing to look at, and I appreciate the aesthetic, but I didn't see a connection between this and the world.
I didn't either. I almost took it like it was meant that the story to me for where the setting takes place is like it's the end of the 19th century, wherever it is in the style and the architecture. So the frame out that I took from this is supposed to be like a pulp that's hearkening back to that.
Okay.
I don't think the execution's there, if that's what they're trying to do. Like it's some kind of action adventure. We're fondly looking back into the reminiscent past of 25, 30 years ago. And to go back to those, great mythological days of heroes and legend, that kind of shit. That's kind of what I thought.
Okay. I also had the thought, but I'm guessing I was wrong. There's that old adage about modern comics as being pitches for movies and TV shows. This made me think of that, but I wouldn't think that something that's been going on for as long as this is a thrown together pitch. You know what I mean?
Right, and that's a great point. There's so much image shit from this era, and this issue 1 was originally released in November of 2015. So you are definitely in I'm pitching to Netflix era of modern comics. This does not feel that way to me, though, and I say that for a variety of reasons. One, it's very intricate. They spent a lot of time structuring this out and making the story what it is. Also, it is still an ongoing series. This is not like a 6-issue, a 12-issue, or an 18-issue run. This is still ongoing. The most recent issue came out in March of this year, which was issue 50, which now this is where they are drifting into territory that I'm disappointed in. They did have 4 variants on the most recent issue that they dropped. So they started off with no variants, which I loved. Like, just drop a comic and sell it. And now they're moving into the variant thing. Now they're not up to like 15 to 18 like we saw with some of the Ghost Machine titles, but they are still doing the variant thing. And I get it. You're trying to make more money with the collector market, but it's a little disappointing to see late in the game after you started off just doing, hey, here's my book. But with that being said, it has gone down almost every year in the number of issues that are coming out. 6 issues came out in 2022, 7 in 2023, and only 2 issues were published in 2024. But it is still an ongoing, so we still do see issues being released. It's just at a much slower pace. Issue 1, if we can get into the story a little bit, I guess, JP, I'm going to kind of start kicking you over to the story a little bit more. You want to kind of give me a rundown, give the audience a rundown on what you thought for issue 1?
Oh, sure. Well, it is kind of a classic. This is a reference I doubt you're going to get, but it's a very classic Bethesda video game opening where we're opening with the main character already. We're opening with the main character as a captive, and then we kind of work our way backwards a little bit to learn her backstory and how she got there, and then yeah, she's up for auction. Like the very first panel establishes that we are looking at a nude minor, so that's a thing. That's a shocking way to be in a book. But she is immediately taken off the auction block by kind of sexy vampire-ish lady who buys up all of the slaves and take them back to the dungeon for some horrific John Podesta kind of shit, I imagine. But they escape, and the girl goes and takes a piece of a mask and makes off with a little girl that looks like with a raccoon tail that if you've ever played Pokemon Sword and Shield, you know what that looks like.
Yeah, so it's essentially we established that it's a world where there's kind of a Cold War going on between two sides. One side is the humans, the other is the Arcanics. The Arcanics are the residual offspring of old gods and humans, and are quasi-magical and kind of have mutations. So like there's a little midget that has like one eye, the girl with the foxtail. They're basically like they're either furries or they're weird. And we're initially introduced to our main hero, this lady who's got a severed arm, Micah Half-Wolf, and she's being sold into slavery in the city of Zamora, which is a human city. And the auction is, as JP stated, is interrupted by the Kume, who are like the Bene Gesserit from Dune of this world. They're like an evil nunnery of alpha women that run everything and everybody's terrified of. Because that's what we need in fantasy is more things like the Bene Gesserit. And they prey on these Arcanics. They like suck the essence out of them and they get their power from them. Then at the end, yeah, Micah escapes with Kippa, the furry, and a talking cat. Yes, a talking cat. We'll get there. But right off the bat, we got this great establishing shot, and here you really get the feeling for the art style that's going to be presented to you. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just, it's epic level detail work. You get the sense of depth of field. You're immediately understanding what kind of a city you're in. The smokestacks gave me that impression that we're like right on the cusp of the industrial age kind of thing.
Yeah. What's, you have these great kind of landscape city shots, but then whenever you enter a scene in a room, that same level of detail and care goes into every single setting. You know what I mean? It reminded me, if you'll forgive, it reminded me of watching Bancroft streams. You know how like when he's a lot of his pages, every room looks like every object in the room has been placed and thought and drawn to exquisite detail.
Yeah, we're going to be burning through some quick pages here, but once we get to issue 3, there's a lot of stuff that's like, man, I'd be shocked if Bancroft hasn't read this because there's some stuff that really reminds me of Lucent in here. But you did have some comments right here on the opening page of the city of Zamora. If you want to kind of go through some of just your thoughts on the dialogue or the narration.
I mean, I think that one of the things that I found to be kind of clunky is the dialogue and the narration. And all I did here, because I'm an a-hole writer, is all you have to do is remove some of the superfluous words, and the narration sounds much more epic. So if you just, I mean, if you just read the left, so much was destroyed during the war, and yet some cities rebuilt themselves as if nothing happened. Too bad people don't rebuild themselves so easily. And all you have to do is just trim the first word of every one of those. Much was destroyed during the war. Some cities rebuilt themselves as if nothing happened. People don't rebuild themselves so easily. You see how like something really small like that makes it just gives it more weight by just getting rid of those superfluous words.
Right. Well, and you're immediately establishing that there's a dichotomy between the city being rebuilt, but people, the citizenry, haven't rebuilt themselves. People, the scars still remain. You can tear down a building that's been demolished, that's been bombed out, and rebuild it, and the memory's gone. That building is now standing, and in 5 years, everybody forgets that it was ever destroyed. People still retain their scars. And I think that's something that is a little lost in the original narration that you really bring forth. It is a subtext throughout this, especially since your main character has a severed arm. They've lost an appendage. The next thing you wanted to bring up was as they're carrying the slaves to the Kume, who are these evil witch coven, and you get this. And again, please elaborate.
Well, I mean, the character on the left is the one that basically owns them and is selling them. And you can see right there, all you inhuman freaks would be in chains to people who are literally in chains.
Yes.
I didn't know I didn't know if there was some kind of disconnect.
I thought she was. I think she was speaking globally, is how I took it.
Ah, okay. So okay, then I'm
Right. So
wrong.
not just these, but all of their kind. It would be a
Got it.
total subjugation, which they haven't really gone into any backstory yet, and we don't really get some of the backstory until later in this issue. But moving a little deeper, we get some again that beautiful Art Deco styling in the background images, and this is it's not overbearing. It's way overbearing. This is an effeminate book.
Mm.
It's very feminine. There's all women.
I mean, I don't know. They are saying to her, "Hey, show us your boobs."
Right. But it's a lot of that. And here to your example or your earlier statement, the detail work. I mean, it is just exquisite in that top panel. And you get some nice perspective twists on some of these. And then the bottom just feels stale. Like
Mm.
again, we almost have that. This is the Tom King effect here in panels 5 and 6, where we're almost reusing the same image if we're not reusing the same image. And that's my only knock on the art is you're going to see this a couple times where we get lazy later in the page. We don't get lazy on the next page because the next page, or not the next page, but moving further into the book is a banger. Now we're in prison. And I want you to like, this page is amazing. You've got light sourcing that's fantastic. Shadow is fantastic. The prison guard is shown in an absolute grotesque fashion in every regard. They're rotund. They contrast with the prisoner who's gaunt and thin and emaciated. And then you've got this massive blob of flesh that's the prison guard who's heckling. It's just absolutely fantastic. And that last panel really establishes, it just puts the dot on the exclamation point. It's just absolutely beautiful. And then we get, again, super detail in this double page spread of the room that we're panning that camera out, right? So we went in close to the prison guard, and now we're pulling it out, and we see the room that they're in, and it's really nice. And we get some good dialogue. And again, you see the little freak there in the corner with a single eye because it's a Cyclops, and that's one of the what are the Arcanic people. And we show the brutality, of course, of the prison guards. But the problem is this girl can fight back, and I love this. We throw it back and we get the 1, 2, 3. Again, quick stacking. We're stacking panels. But just like Ellis talked about with Fell, it's about it's about that meter and about that measure and how much. So we've got a wide panel of the first impact, and then the results are quickened. So as we accelerate down the page, we're not dwelling because things are moving quickly. So we're reading in real time almost. It's a really nice touch. The artist really understands what she's doing in this first issue. And I should make note at this point that the first issue of this is over 60 pages. And it's a nice fat issue. This thing retailed for $5. This was a deal when you got it off the rack. And then we get like a nice Ripley moment where everything's going to shit, and we get some of this going on. It's a nice page. Again, the reveal, the door opens, we've got a gun, somebody's burning. They push him down, and this is where I'm saying sometimes the art on the top of the page doesn't match the art on the bottom of the page. Look at the detail on the top, and then look at the bottom, and we're just we get that fading effect sometimes.
And because you have the person on fire, it's a great opportunity to do reverse shot.
Yep, and we're not doing that. It's all the same perspective. If you would have dropped the camera and put that first shot, panel 2 can stay where it's at, and then invert it and show it from behind with the person burning falling in front of her with the gun out kind of over it and projecting, that would have been a badass shot right there. And then flip it for the final panel on 4, and then you move into more of this, which is an action beat, and then you get boom, we're firing the gun again, and then you get some nice dynamic action, because here we are inverting the camera, so we understand what we want to do. But man, what a loss that we didn't get it down here. And yeah, we are nitpicking, but these are the little things that we like to talk about in the gutter. So moving a little deeper into the story, the people have broken away. There's a really nice dialogue, and this I wanted to cite because this reminded me a lot of what Arvid was doing when we talked to Arvid about Band of the Crow, is using that cool and warm to contrast a single page, but yet still somehow make it work. If you remember, we talked about how Arvid was really, in those colors, Oren was blending the light sourcing of the warmth from the inside with the cool of the moon from the outside. You don't get that here. It's very stark, but it's intentionally stark. It's a pause moment in the story. Normally, I don't like stuff like this, but I think it works. And I think part of the reason it works is you've got those two guards standing outside the warm glow of the window. And that it almost invites you in. And then you're drifting into the room as the reader, and then you're getting the dialogue. And then it cools down as you go by. So you kind of come in, you're getting close to that fire, it's hot, and then as you back away and pull back, it gets colder. And I thought that was a really nice touch that I don't see done too often.
Sorry, seeing those guards makes me think about how this story really does not like guards.
No, it doesn't like men. It's very evident that it is written with a feminist bent, and that's fine. It's a good story, but it's just very upfront with that. And again, it is something of its era. It is from 2015, and we're gonna finish out going through issue 1, and then I'll hit some of your comics, guys. But we got more of this, and again, this is that nouveau style. You got that everything flows, man, and the backgrounds just kind of blend. And I really like the art in this book. It killed me that I just couldn't engage. It's one of the few books, like I said, it was a chore to read. It just was. I was like chewing through pages, just trying to get through it because it's just not my bag. But it is engaging. Like I kept on reading it, and there's moments where you pick it up. Like here, we get the reveal of Zin, who's this elder god that lives within Mecca. And it's like, I want more of this. Like but we get multiple pages of exposition, and the pacing on that, I guess if I had to say anything about issue 1, the pacing of issue 1 was really off. Every time I felt we were moving forward and really getting into something, it's like they pumped the brakes, popped the clutch, dropped 2 gears back, and slowed everything the hell down because, well, shit, that car 4 miles ahead of us just tapped their brakes. And it was just a little teeth-grindingly irritating. But
yeah,
again,
I mean, I found that whenever we went into either flashback or narration, I feel like the story would be improved without it at all.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Now, here earlier I said like Berserk or even Attack on Titan both of which I've read a little bit of. I'm not by any means an expert in either, but here's where I start seeing some of that influence. Like that last panel, when you look at panel 5, I get the sense that there's a manga or an anime influence in this, because that anatomy of that jaw extending and the way the eyes are just seems so Eastern in everything about it. And the story, that's where around this page is where I first started going like, well, maybe I'm missing something, because I'm not that familiar with the Eastern style, that this is really trying to merge those two, kind of like what Irene did in Fiendish. And that's where I started kind of making some associations, which became very clear in the next issue, that there almost seems to be some, oh, okay, I think this is one of those kind of attempts to merge something. But we get this, and this again, just the color work in this is just stellar. And the art is fantastic for the most part. There's a couple, like I said, there's some pages that aren't good. But when you close out a book with something like this is great. This is the last page of the first issue, and it's fantastic. I love it. You get that sense of everything that's kind of mysterious, and what's the eye association with the tattoo that we saw earlier, and then what's the association with this piece of the mask that she gets. But JP, you had some issues with this.
Well, I mean, we were talking earlier about, the language and the profanity and how it just feels out of place. And yeah, so I improved this page with my edit of it. Yeah, that's it. We don't need any words at all, but
if any
man,
word, just like a humph or a
no, I think the
Well,
face
he's a talking
says
cat.
it
I
all.
think you want to establish that he's a talking cat.
Well,
So I
yeah,
think
but we already no. I just no, because he talked earlier. We know he's a talking cat. I think the facial expression says all that needs to be said. And also now would be a good time to point out that cat has way more facial expressions than the main character.
yes,
She makes one, maybe two expressions.
she has a grimace and then stoic.
Yeah.
And
So,
I think it's just, I think that's
so
them.
her two expressions are taking a poop and taking a really good poop.
Yes, I would concur with your sentiments on that. But I think what it is I think they're trying too hard to push her into a masculine role, and I think this is a mistake that a lot of work in this category, in this field, does, is you create a feminine lead that's in the hero role, and then you take all the femininity away. And I think that's a massive mistake, because if you're going to do that, just make it a dude. But and that's what they seem to be doing here. You can have somebody that's irrecoverably broken, that has a fundamental flaw of that they can't relate to people, but they can still show empathy. You can still do that. And if you're going to do a feminine, you need to have that layer of empathy. Just show her have empathy in some way, shape, or form in her expression, but she doesn't know how to deal with it. Like, have a panel where she kind of cracks something in her facial expression that shows that she cares, but then it goes right back to steel. It doesn't take much, but you need to show, in my opinion, that you've got that there. Otherwise, it just feels flat and two-dimensional. But before, as promised, before I move into issue 2, let us look at who we got in the chat. Well, we have the rare comment from Eric Grant complimenting JP. I hate to say it, but JP is right.
I'm gonna screen cap that and print it out.
Put it on a shirt. Gutter Schmutter. Tons of mainstream awards. Smells like a Netflix picture. Furries? Are we still in the gutter? Yeah, dude. I know. I'm sorry. Kayla's here. Better late than never. Yes, it is targeted to women. No, absolutely. It is targeted to women. And it does a good job with its target audience. The art with a different color palette wouldn't have the same magic. I tend to agree. The palette on this is exceptional for the most part. There's a couple of issues I have in later issues, but right on the nose, anime influence all over the place. And then I don't think she's masculine at all. Her behavior is typical for many women that have PTSD. Okay. So then moving into issue 2, I've clipped significantly less. Issue 2's cover, again, this is going to be like, issue 2 will run you like 20 to 50. I believe there was only 2 printing. I think again there were 2 printings of this. I think there was a second and a third. I think issue 3 is where we only get a second printing of it. But in this issue, here's where we really get the front matter, and we get a nice breakdown of everything right away, right off the bat. And this, man, I wish more books would do this. Just give me something right off the bat to catch me up for everything I missed in the first issue. And then we move into this. I love this. We established that despite the fact we're in a matriarchal society, there is like a layer or a caste of badasses within the women, within this version of the Bene Gesserit that are physical. I kind of dug it. Like, it was nice. Like, okay, I can get behind that they've got a militant arm that's got some bruisers in it. I like that.
Yeah, that definitely reminded me of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't remember the characters, but it's like it's the 3 women, and they all have very distinct personalities.
Right. And Frequency Girl says, I can't see anyone else's comments in the chat. We stream, we dual stream on this. It's both on the LCH Comics channel, Jeremy's Comics channel, and on the Gutter chat. So we stream on both. I recommend everybody drift over to the Gutter because probably pretty soon we'll just be switching right over to that channel. And then the Witching Hour will just be over here on Wednesdays. But here we get a great page with some super awesome dynamic action. And this is something that, man, I wish I'd seen more of. And it's so weird to find it in this book because I didn't anticipate to see a single action shot in a single panel in this book based off of everything I saw in issue 1. And it was great. This is fantastic. You've got everything that you'd see in like an old Spider-Man panel in this book, and it's cool because we're getting that, and then we break it with a really nice angular, just slightly slit gutter, and then we move into 2 panels that show faint action, and then we get into dialogue. And I'm okay with that because the page is bottom heavy, but all the bottom is pretty much like face focused, so it's individual shots. My only critique on this is if you look at those last 2 panels, that could have been 1 panel with just the letterer working with the artist a little bit better to pace that out. There's no reason to split that.
Also, definitely, I think I could be wrong. Definitely an anime influence with the cutting off of the heads, and then the just like that second panel is like a pause moment, and then the absolute carnage in panel 3.
Yep. No, for sure.
And man, like she walked in and killed like 4 or 5 guards, and like, God, the woman there doesn't even care.
Well, an absolutely
like, oh, so you've killed all of my guards.
An absolutely fantastic character design too. That reveal of the character there in panel 4 is fantastic. Just absolutely exquisite, perfectly done, great execution. We don't even need to talk about where we're at in the story. It's just good. And that's the thing. We're halfway through issue 2. Haven't told you where the story is because you don't need to know. You're just engaged by the art. And that's good. Again, this is good. It's just not for me. This is not something that I'm going to pick up again. But then we get to some of the stuff like this. And this is where I feel the artist is just phoning it in.
Rough.
It's really weak. And we get a lot of this in issue 2 and a lot of this in issue 3. And we move into issue 3, and now we're putting furries on the cover. So we're getting further away. Again, I mean, issue 2's cover, we had this really nice, I mean, you can maybe see that's furry, but you don't really know. But in here, yeah, we're fully going with furrydom. And again, we get the nice front matter with the good explanation. But then, man, we open with this banger of a page, which is just fantastic. And we're getting into that Lovecraftian side because we've got monsters with tentacles now. But of course, it's anime shit, so we're going to have monsters with tentacles.
Well, do you think that it's kind of occurring to me now, do you think that with the tentacles and the Lovecraft and the furry, that this is a series that just kind of lightly dips its toes into different fandoms?
I think they're shotgunning a little bit here just to try to grab a hold of something. Given that we're only reading the first 6, it's hard to say where they end up. Because, I mean, this thing's still going and it's still selling well. And it has a fairly significant fandom. So I don't know for sure. I would hope that if they're on issue 50 and it's still got the readership that it does, that this is a fairly decent story moving on. It's
And then you have
again
a talking cat, so that's the Sabrina the Teenage Witch fandom.
right. Or Hojo. Hojo's got a talking cat
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Fucking Hojo. But yeah, and so we move into some of these pages, and then we get stuff like this. So this is what just infuriates me. Is we get pages like this from the same artist that gives me a page like this. I don't get it. I don't get how it's just there's such a dichotomy going on here. And then we move in to some of these pages, which these are the pages that I was saying, like, man, this
Yeah,
just brought me
Bancroft.
back to Bancroft. It's like
Yeah.
these are just stunningly beautiful.
It is
It's
a
that
pain to death.
yeah, and it's not just the detail, it's the pitch of the panel. Because
Yeah.
these are angles. Bancroft has this. This is the thing I love about his art. Michael Bancroft will pick a scene and pick a camera angle that I never would have thought to think about, but he makes it interesting.
Yeah,
It's like that
Bancroft
shot of
angles. The
Paris where
bangles.
yeah, it's a bangle, man. I love it. But here we get this shot of in panel 2, we get that inset of her face, then we pan out and we get the scene, but it's of the pillars essentially. We're framing the shot with the pillars. And then we pan back and we get a downward shot, and then we do a complete 180 and come up from the sand. We're doing a worm's eye now. And not only do we get the wall, but we get the curvature of the wall almost like we're fisheyeing. It's like it's just wild
Mm.
that the same person that drew this and drew this. So where was this when we were drawing this is where I'm headed. Like, and that's it happens time and time again in this series. And then after that, we get that, which is another great. You talk about stacked panels and have inflection of meaning and interpretation. Boom, right here, boom, boom, boom. This is a fantastic page of what they're trying to get across with the multiple references of what's going on. In addition to just the dialogue, you've got inferred meaning. You've got organizational meaning for how the panels are laid out. Plus, then just reading line. You're reading it as if her hair flows down into her own face, which then flows down into the eye, which you know is tattooed on her chest. This is fantastic.
Can you back up a couple to the really crappy page you were pointing out?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things that we can say is a kind of hallmark of strong women protagonists, particularly at this time, is that they are a-holes, but nobody calls them an a-hole, right? So it goes back to what you were talking earlier about, having a strong female character that just acts like a man, but nobody calls him out for it. This book does call her out for it. You know what I mean? It was one of the things that kind of stood out to me was everybody on this page is calling her selfish. And that, I don't know, I think there's a bit of merit to that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, but they do call her out on it.
Also, I genuinely don't know what people in the chat are talking about, like what lesbians are in this book.
Kayla says, "Oh, definitely lesbians. Order it."
Oh, order it. Okay.
Yeah, many women in general, even non-lesbians. Yeah, no, it's a chick book for sure.
I mean, but I thought for sure there would be way more Coomer material in this book, and there's like nothing.
No, for sure. I was the same way. I thought this going, especially those first few pages where it was like, oh man, this is going to be one of those books, and we're going to be doing another Jaruna episode, and it's not. It's not borderline erotica at all. This is the cover for issue 4. Issue 4 is going to retail you about 10 to 15 in the back. Again, we get that nice front matter download. Again, just really nice work. Fantastic opening to issue 4. Probably my favorite of the 6 that we read. Just absolutely brutal right off the bat. And then we go to this, which was a tonal shift that I didn't get. And then we get furry shit.
What the? Sweet man-made horrors beyond our comprehension.
Yeah, you flagged this one in particular, JP. So
I mean, look at it. What What fresh hell is this?
I don't know, but
It's
this is around
so
when
uncanny valley. It's horrifying.
this is around where I stopped reading. I made it halfway through issue 4 and just stopped. So this is where the images pretty much end.
Wow.
Again, we've got some good stuff here. I love this this page. Great layout, dark light with this is fantastic. And this is what I was so frustrated with the art in this because it's so brilliant at times and so frustratingly just pedestrian at others.
Arrogant
Like
ape.
101 Dalmatians.
No damnations.
Damnations. Woman made horror. I've never looked up the values of these issues before. I'm suddenly very glad I didn't left near my books. Yeah, these early issues have some value. I think it's up to like issue 12 or so. Have a little bit of intrinsic. Kayla can probably correct me on that. She'd know better than me after the first 6 because that's all I researched. It's a character based on a dog. Yeah, I have no idea what any of that means.
I think Inugami is a sushi.
Okay. Dean, great to see you, Dean. Thanks for joining us. Says, yeah, same Kale. I'm just pointing out that I got way too many lesbians starting to take me out a bit. I own every volume of this series. Yeah, Dean, I can see how you would, man. This art is right up your alley in some regards.
I
Then we
mean,
get
that definitely
issue 5.
explains the importance of the sideways eye.
Yeah. Oh, I hadn't
Labias
thought of
and all.
that. There you go. But issue 5, great cover again, and now we're drifting really heavy into that gilded, kind of Art Nouveau style, which I don't see in the book, which is still weird.
Yeah.
And the only page that we have really to look at is this. You wanted to talk about this?
I mean, not really. This is just another example of how you can make dialogue better just by cutting an entire dialogue balloon.
Absolutely.
This is what our father taught us, is it not? This is for the greater good, and a brother always helps a sister. So it's that great classic dialogue of like a character telling another character how they know each other. Sister, I'm your brother. You know what I mean? Ugh, gross. Get it out.
Yep. No, I'm right there with you. And then issue 6 had this cover, and that's I didn't read anymore because it's just not for me. This is not a book that's for me. But I can see why people were engaged by it. I can see why people like it. It's well written.
Yeah, and while Dean is
here and there aside.
While Dean is here, this is a reference he'll definitely understand. This book weirdly reminded me a lot of Hollow Knight. And that's not going to mean anything to you, but I know Dean will get it.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't mean anything to me, but no, this was it was a weird one. It's not something I ever would have picked up just because it doesn't look like it. But with the recommendation, we checked it out, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I own volume 1. I will never buy volume 2, but I'm glad I own volume 1 because there's a lot of really good stuff in here. And again, you can get this thing for $9 for 192 pages. Like, why not? Just for the art. And you never know, this story, if you're an anime fan, if you're a manga guy, if you like this kind of stuff, you're probably going to love it. If you like Berserk, you're going to love it. If you like Irene stuff, you're going to love it. I like Irene stuff, but this just didn't resonate with me. So Arrogant Ape asks, is it like Hollow Knight because the main character can't show emotion?
Yeah, kind of. No, there's a lot of I'm trying to think, like there's a lot of settings in the book that remind me of settings in Hollow Knight, like the White Palace. There's a lot of tentacle horror monsters in that as well. But yeah, I meant it as a compliment. I would say the art in this book is mostly great. I think the story is great. I think for me, what lets it down some of the times is there are character arcs that in the six books I read didn't really go anywhere. The little fox girl, I think in that entire, because the 6 books were really like a full arc.
Yeah.
The fox girl had like one scene that was worth a damn and then didn't even really matter for the rest of the book, just tagging along. And typically that is a character that would be the window into that world for the reader, but it's a magical fox girl with psychic powers, so it's not exactly a good vessel for us.
Right. Well, unlike you, I'm not going to complain about the fact that the furry wasn't highlighted more. I was rather happy with that. The only thing I was disappointed by was a Buick didn't randomly come through and run her over. But with that being said, final thoughts, JP, Monstress.
Man, I'm really sorry to be that guy, but it's monstrous, like monster.
Oh, I just read it as Monstress.
It's not North Carolina Hall of Fame center Eric Montrose.
Okay.
But yeah,
always be that guy. Never change.
I'd recommend it. I also sent you an image that you didn't pull up, and I don't blame you, but there's a line in the book about the eagles and eagles eating cats, and eagles will eat anything if they're hungry enough. The writer is actually from Philadelphia, so go birds.
There you go. And again, I would just like to remind people that JP has avoided certain segments of the country, including South Carolina. But this has been The Gutter. I will be dropping the link to the back room in the chat right now. You are welcome to join us after the show. And thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Check this book out. It is one that we recommend, even if we both didn't completely love it. So, have a good night.
This is blood for blood and by the gallons. This is the old days and the bad days, the all or nothing days. They're back. There's no choices left.
You still here? It's over. Go home. Go.